Hi, my name's Lindy Cowling. Welcome to my channel. My website is www.lindycowling.co.uk. Email info@lindycowling.co.uk. Title of the video today is September Shakedown. It's like an update of where the energy is at the moment globally, collectively, and individually through my perception and my experiences, as this is an experiential channel. So I don't know about you guys. August, I found August to be incredibly challenging. Obviously, with the eclipse and the moons and all sorts of stuff going on, all sorts of astrological shenanigans going on, all of which have been influencing all of us, but all of which have been in particularly affecting Leo. And of course, I'm a Leo. One of my sons is a Leo as well, so it's had a massive impact on him this month. So a significant kind of month energy-wise. It's interesting, this video. Most of you that know how I work know I work experientially, which means I share through my own perspective, my own experience, my own personal experience personally, and that of my experience with clients. And the way I work is very much, apart from the odd exception when I write things down beforehand and then read off a list, which I've done sometimes recently, most of the way I work is intuitively, and I don't really plan, apart from the title, and sometimes I don't even know the title till I come on here, what I'm going to say and how I'm going to say it. First of all, the way I'm being guided to go here is from a very personal perspective on where we're at with the energy now. And this energy in September, the September shakedown, is really, what do I mean by shakedown? It's the shakedown of the global reality and global events, but also the shakedown and perception of all of those belief systems and programs we have been tied into, tired, I said it again, look at that for a Freudian slip. So tired into, or tired of, and tied into. It's a shakedown of all of those. And I'm not going to be blasé about it. It's immensely challenging, shaking down belief systems and concepts that you've been tied up in kind of since time began, or since you were incarnated on the planet. As a result of a change and a shakedown of those belief systems within you, the micro within you, the macro externally, of course, it's all about change, but there's a process of almost like, I would say it's a bit like grieving when your perception changes from one state to another, or your reality is on the horizons or on the cusp of changing from one state to another, because it's very much like disengaging and unhooking from and detaching from kind of concepts of who you thought you were, or how you were living your lives, what you were doing and not doing, and kind of coming away from that internally and externally. And that is on a human level, not on a woo-woo level, but on the human level. It is a big challenge for many of us. And of course, let's say the older you are and the longer you've been hooked into those belief systems or part of them, the more challenging. The more that you run old energy, which is a lot of it is coming in from other lives or other timelines, or very heavy, dense soul energy there, belief systems, etc., the more that you run old energy as a templater, which means taking it on for the collective, transforming it, and it coming through the other side, the more that you're entrenched with the old way of running that energy, the more uncomfortable it is. It really has to get to a point where it's so uncomfortable, and actually it's more uncomfortable staying in those old patterns and old belief systems and old energy than it is to transform. What do I mean transform? Basically, what I mean by transform is to come to a neutral state, an authentic state of energy, which I mean neutral and authentic because it has no programmings, belief systems, or anything like that left on it. And you are basically you. So the real you. What do I mean about being the real you? What does that mean? It means everything. It means the heart of you. What is there when it is you, the authentic you, minus all of the judgments that you put on yourselves or others put on you, all of the belief systems and the programmings that family or society or friends put on you, and it is just what is left, that 0 point neutral state of energy in the heart. It's the real you, basically. So it's not that you've gone through your lives pretending to be something or something you're not. You have gone through your lives through the experience of living on this planet with your unique personalities, your unique expressions of consciousness that haven't always had a chance to express themselves authentically because there's so much input around you to doctor that and prevent you from being your authentic selves. So it's you, the real you, the 0 point form of you, the conscious you, so making decisions from there. This sounds all very wonderful, and reaching that point is great for people that reach that point, but the transition and the transformation into reaching that point is like layers upon layers of realizations, revelations, almost like a little mini death and rebirth metaphysically. There is sadness with that, and there is sadness with it because it's letting go of how you perceived things to be, and then very much looking at the circumstances and reality around you and facing that really as your starting point. So even if you are in circumstances or situations that really aren't very good for you, you don't feel they're very good for you, you're struggling, maybe you're struggling mentally, emotionally, maybe you're struggling financially, physically, health-wise, you know, a whole vast range of things, and maybe all of those things. That is your starting point. It's your starting point at which to look around and realize, okay, where am I at? And am I happy where I am at? And if you're not happy where you're at, actually making conscious decisions on how to transform that. So I'm going to give you an example. As you know, again, this is an experiential channel. It's very personal. Part of being the authentic me has been from day one to come up here for the last 3 years, and wherever I am at, in terms of energy or in terms of what's been happening around me, kind of sharing there, really, when I look back at it now, almost like to provide a template, a very personal stepping stones in that template on that journey into the heart. It's just, I'm smiling here because I can hear my cat come in. My cat always knows when I'm doing a video and always seems to want to get involved. He's been out the garden. I could just hear him coming in. So I'm going to give you an example here because I think this will be helpful to people. I do feel it will be helpful to people. There is a perception that people in a similar line to myself, shall we say, that shares. Some people call me a teacher, spiritual teacher, you know, whatever name you put to me, that we have got all our shit together and that life is rosy. I can absolutely, I mean, I have to laugh now. You have to laugh, don't you? Or you have to cry. I can absolutely assure you that my life has been a series of roller coasters since the day I was born. And although I've come an awful long way into my heart, and there's been an awful lot of change around me on a human level, especially as an empathic personality and empathic sensitive, has been immensely challenging. And the situation, why I'm sharing this now, the situation I'm in at this point in time is exceptionally physically challenging. So during the month of August, for example, I've got shingles. Shingles was something I had when I was age 7, all to do with trauma and central nervous system. And so because I've got to that point in my evolution where I have this golden opportunity, just like you all do, to resolve this trauma if it's still held in the energy field once and for all. I have shingles. Now, I haven't had it bad at all, not as bad as I had it when I was 7. It's almost like echoes of it, but it's actually appeared as a rash and everything. So I've had that over the last few weeks going on, aside from all of the normal stuff. At this point in time, this has been going on for a while, but I have not shared this up to now, but I feel this is the point to do it because it's almost like, how can I put it? You don't need me to give you permission for anything, but I feel like in bringing this video out, it's almost like going to be a relief to people and give them permission to not beat themselves up and judge themselves and actually think, you know, yes, this is normal and it's part of the human experience. The house I'm living in now, I've been trying to move from this house for 14 months. There are numerous issues with it, and although I'm in a beautiful area of the country, which is 10 minutes off the coast, this area of the country has now coming to a close for me, and I've known that for some time. The position I'm in at the moment is this house has rising damp. It has black mold everywhere. It has the worst condensation I've ever seen. When I put the cooker hob on for more than 20 minutes, the whole electrics shut down to the house. It is riddled with woodworm. And this is a house that is becoming extremely challenging for my health. And you've probably noticed on camera I've been coughing a lot lately and all the rest of it. Some of that, of course, is throat chakra related, but some of it is the conditions in this house. I've had to get onto environmental health. I've had to threaten legal action against the people I'm renting the house from. They don't send anyone in from 1 month to the next. And when they do, and the house gets, you know, practically condemned, no one's doing anything about anything or answering emails or anything. So I'm now in this situation. And again, this is a very personal thing. And from my point of view, could I say it was a brave thing in a way, because people, when you are doing this kind of work, people put you on a pedestal. I don't put me on a pedestal. I've never put me on a pedestal. What you see is what you get, the authentic me. And people either love that or hate it. But certain people do put me on a pedestal and expect that I've got all my stuff together. I can tell you that anyone out there doing this kind of variation of work, they've walked their walk. And it's obvious those that haven't and those that are just doing the talking. Those that have done the walking, you can see it. And they've been through all these kind of challenges and transformations and everything being lost before it was gained. And, you know, they've been through the human experience. I mean, that is part of, shall we say, learning our mastery. So from that point of view, I thought, I didn't know this was going to come out camera today, but it's been swimming about for a few days. So I wondered if it would. But I feel that this will help people because, like I say, I don't put me on a pedestal. Other people put me on a pedestal. I am giving you the authentic truth, if you like. And I think this will help people to know that I am going through these things as well. So this is quite an extreme example. And my life is an extreme example of things. It always has been. no matter how well balanced I am, I have all this stuff going on around me. I'm in a position here where I've been pushed now under the poverty line for the last 2 years. There's probably a misconception that I'm not under the poverty line, and I've been under the poverty line for 2 years. Some of that, again, I can look at the woo-woo aspect of it, the energy aspect of it, and buying into that service and sacrifice for no receipt of compensation for that, etc., etc. I've looked at all of that, and I can look at all of that, being caught up in those kind of belief systems. But the situation I'm in here now is because I'm under the poverty line. I'm like a goldfish in a bowl, going round and round, trying to leave this property I'm in with all the criteria as a result with poverty and etc., etc., and even having a cat, almost like being held against me. So this is an interesting situation because I'm in a property now that is very detrimental to my health. And I do not have the finances at this second to get out of it. This has been building up for some time now. The reason I'm bringing this up is every single day I am working on alchemizing and transforming that. And I came to a point just recently, okay, why is this not working? Why is this not working? And there are great lessons in it, you know. When something's falling down around your ears and the circumstances around you are very challenging, my normal reaction to that would be to leave the body in any way that I could leave it. Disassociate, displace, go off with the fairies. I haven't done any of that, and I haven't even automatically or subconsciously done it. I've been very here and very present and pleasant. Has it been challenging? Oh, yeah, it's been really challenging to be physically anchored here as my starting point. So what do I mean, this is my starting point? You can come a long way in the evolution of your hearts, but then you can get to a point where you have to live it, walk it. Live it in everyday reality. And your starting point is when that realization comes to you. This is your starting point. Now, I'm using this as an example because I know lots of people watching this are in good places, let's say spiritually and in energy, but their circumstances around them are not in a good place. They are isolated, they are lonely, they feel cut off, they are under the poverty line. They are in circumstances that don't feel good. And what they're doing and what I was doing is like really questioning themselves, like, well, where did I go wrong? How have I gone wrong? How has it come to this? How do I get out of this? They're judging themselves and heaping that on top as well. And what I would say is where you're at now is your starting point. It gives you great opportunity to come into a balanced state of awareness, no matter what the conditions are around you. And it is extremely challenging to do that and come into your heart when all that's going on. But you have that opportunity to do that and to show yourself that you're not running away from those circumstances, which is a big theme that I'm seeing personally up close, but also collectively, is this 11th hour running where people are in circumstances or conditions that they don't, not even that they don't even realize they don't like, but they're rather than having that as their starting point and really understanding who they are and anchoring it and living it and facing it, they're doing a lot of things to avoid that. So they fill their lives with things or anything to distract themselves from this 11th hour, which is all part of this. What I'm going to say here, I'm deviating off a bit, is it is all about transformation and alchemy, and it's just as much about being 100% in it. And I know that a lot of you don't like to be in the circumstance that you're in at this very second. And I'm one of you. So that's how I know as well. It's very challenging for me as a human being to be in the circumstances I'm in at the moment. And I'm also in a circumstance about 200 miles away from anyone I love. So all of those things are part and parcel of the same thing. Now, I did think about coming on here which doesn't come easy to me, and say to my almost 7,000 subscribers, and I have looked at this as a way of, let's say, transforming, to all of my 7,000 subscribers, if every one of those subscribers were to contribute like the equivalent of £1 British or £2 British, I could transform this situation very quickly. Now, I looked at this, I've been looking at that for the last week or so, thinking, because it does not come easy to me. I find it difficult to ask for any kind of support or assistance. Of course, that's another big learning curve, and it's all about receiving. And at first it was like, well, maybe I'm just supposed to suffer in silence, really, and not say anything. But as things are deteriorating by the week, I've come to the realization, okay, I'm doing everything I can from the woo-woo side of it. Now I'm going to have to do make some physical, practical changes. And it has even got to a point in me where I'm seriously considering, for the first time in 17 years, actually retraining and going into a kind of different kind of more linear therapy. Not because I'm turning my back on what I'm doing now, but the reality is what I'm doing now is not enabling me to live a quality of life that is good for my health or good for my well-being or good for my life. Now, when you have that realization, that was a bit of a shock when I had that one. And what I would say to you is, if you have those realizations, it might be a bit of a shock. But if you have that, it's all about living now and anchoring now and walking it. And if you can't do any of those things because the situation you're in is not enabling you to do it, then actually you're not actually being the authentic you and living your truth. So this channel is all about the authentic you and living your truth by going into the heart. And if I can't be the authentic me and live my truth and go in my heart, with the circumstances I'm in as it is now, then that has to be transformed. And I'm really on the cusp now. I feel it's going to, of going, let's say, to get a more conventional job for the first time in 17 years. This, for me, sharing this is quite a whopper, but I feel it needs to be said and it needs to be shared. And I think it's going to help people, give them that kind of, they don't need my permission, but in a way it's like giving someone permission to say, oh, thank the Lord, someone who's kind of known as a kind of like, people know me as a spiritual teacher. I don't call myself that, but people call me that. There's actually now saying, actually, she's having a hell of a time of it. And she's having to make some very linear changes. Where does this fit in with your higher timeline? Where does this fit in with creating? I am working on all of those things, but sometimes we do have to take some steps, some practical, logical, basic human steps, some action to create change, because we can set the foundations, if you like, of this, but if you don't actually, grab the bull by the horns, so to speak, and actually do some logical things here to change things, then it's almost like waiting for the cavalry to arrive, or the unicorns to arrive, or the fairies to arrive, and no one's arriving. Now, again, of course, I am who I am, and I tap into all those elements and those realms, but there comes a point in your evolution, and it is a very uncomfortable point, where you realize that some practical steps have to be taken, and hence September Shakedown. This is a point that many people are reaching, and they are some of them are feeling very angry, some of them are feeling they're letting themselves down, or like, let's say, the light worker industry or the new age industry is letting them down. They feel very challenged, and it's a time where we're looped into an energy where global energy cosmic energy is kind of changing massively. The truth is coming out. The authentic truth is coming out everywhere across the world, blow by blow, every single day, and we're not even hearing the half of it. There is so much stuff coming out about everything right across the board in the whole structure. So it isn't really any wonder why that's happening when in people this kind of thing is happening. And it's that very physical living it as a human being that is the crunch point. It's the crunch point for all of us, and even more so if you are very good at being in la la land and the woo woo side of it, and then having to anchor that, not be there and anchor it. That's been the 100% the hardest part for me, because as I've said many times before on this channel, I'm very good, or was very good, shall I say. I don't do it anymore. It's not a knee-jerk response. It's not happening to me anymore, where I zoom off out the body, leave the body, disassociate. I learned it through trauma when I was very little, so that doesn't happen anymore. And that is amazing to me, that I can be like in the eye in the middle of a storm whirling around me, and yet I'm still very here and anchored. That makes me immensely pleased to see how far I've come to do that, to be able to do that now, not even try, but just am in the body. But that also is very uncomfortable for me, because it means I have to look very hard at the circumstances I'm in. Even though I know the bigger picture and the learning around it, I also have to look at this as my starting point. Like you need to look at wherever you're at now, especially if it's uncomfortable for you, especially if it's uncomfortable in any of those practical ways, or uncomfortable in that you've met someone and you're not with them at the moment or whatever. Look at where you're at now as your starting point, and look at the reality around you. Sometimes we have to make some practical decisions that seem very linear and very logical and very practical, but they are absolutely the right thing to do. And sometimes they're just temporary to get you from A to B, or to facilitate something, or to make, let's say, create a space for that change to happen, because otherwise you get caught in the same loop, and something has to break into that loop somewhere. Something has to break into that loop somewhere where you break that cycle. Otherwise you just go round and round, and it's a self-perpetuating wheel, and then you get more and more frustrated because, like, why isn't it changing now? You've got to have a look. Really, I'm going to say this, it sounds so corny again, but all we have is now. All we have is now. We spend most of our time immersed in what has been, or or what we hope to be, or isn't actually here at this second. All we have is now. So just sit down and look around you at your reality now as your starting point. If you're someone that is gloriously happy in your reality now, you're living, working, everyday life, that you can put your hand on your heart and say, you know what, I'm living the life, and I feel life force flowing through me, and I'm living life the way I want to be living it. I'm happy most of the time. Well, that's fantastic, and really you're on, I'm not going to say the right track, I'm going to say the authentic track. If you say that and feel it, that's fantastic. If you're someone that is not like that for at all, that you're mourning someone that you're not with, or you're going through immense loss, or your physical circumstances seem to totally suck, like a lot of us. And it's that's okay. You're learning, and I'm going to say learnt. I've learnt what this period of time has done for me. I've become amazingly independent, gone into my heart even more so in these circumstances whirling around me, but it's now impacting on my physical health, and actually impacting on me, and not comfortable. And I feel it's coming to a close one way or another. If you are in a circumstance where any of those circumstances there, Don't look at it as your end point. Look at it as your starting point. And what are you happy? Are you happy? Ask yourself these questions. That sounds like a really easy question. How many of us to actually really sit down and say to ourselves, am I happy? Is the way my life is going, the way I want to live it? How can I change this? Don't think that you have to change it all overnight. For some people, it goes like that. I have a history from the day I was born of big death, rebirth, transformation every so many years, works out about 7 years. It goes, everything comes down at once. Then I'm into another cycle. Everything goes at once. On all fronts. I never get it just on one front. So I have that seems to be the way for me. It might not be that way for you. It might be one area. And don't overwhelm yourself by thinking it's got to be everything at once. But it is a time, this is a September shakedown, to ask yourself some really heartfelt questions. Am I happy? Is there an area of my life that I'm very unhappy with? How can I change that? Am I conscious, as most of my life being dictated by the society I'm in and the restrictions and the suffocating restrictions of the society I'm in? Am I being financially restricted? These are the questions to ask yourself. Am I being spiritually restricted? Am I being controlled by family? Am I being controlled by friends? Am I being controlled by society? What has to change in my life, practically, physically, or in me? So these are the questions you're asking yourself to feel happy, to feel alive, to get some quality of life, to get to feel alive, life force. These are uncomfortable questions and very powerful questions, and do not think you've got to run across that river, all the stepping stones at once. It might be one stepping stone for so many weeks. It might be another one. Or some of you might leap the whole river and it's a huge transformation. But this is the time we're at now. There's no holds barred really on the opportunity that we have here, but this is an uncomfortable part of it. And the more that you've been in la la land or woo woo, either off planet, or if you've been distracting yourself with other things, immersed in other things, and haven't done this human part of it that as the last piece of the puzzle. And I call it the last piece of the puzzle because we are here to experience within and as our human body as well, not separately from it. And this is the bit that people run from, and I used to run from it as well. Hence I'm being forced and tested numerous times now. Will she run in these circumstances? Will she run in those circumstances? And I haven't. Really, again, wherever your starting point is that's your starting point. It's not your end point. In regards to this is an individual thing that's going on in houses up and down the countries and all over the world. Definitely, it's happening to me. Also, what I would say is globally, on a global scale, we're entering a period of massive shakedown. You cannot have these kind of implosions in people of awareness and raising of consciousness and people coming out of belief systems and going into a 0 point field of conscious energy without there being change around that. Some of that change is, there are energies that try and prevent that change because there's a lot of control energies trying to prevent that. Of course, it hasn't worked and it will not work. Those changes are happening. So we will see changes around us, and I am expecting that process to increase in people, but also worldwide. This will, I'm sure, culminate in many question marks over many institutions that people are entangled with their belief systems across the board. There is nowhere untouched, including the light worker industry, actually, nowhere untouched from these from this, let's say, soul searching, but I'm also expecting kind of earth shakedowns. So when we've got this micro going on, we're going to get this macro as well. So it's a natural part of planet Earth is to kind of transform and keep coming back to neutral, really, coming back to that pure state. Think what the Earth, when I say shakedowns, think about that on an Earth perspective. When the Earth transforms, really the Earth is always moving and transforming, but she comes back, or Earth comes back to a neutral state of purity and simplicity. A neutral, clean, pure state. That's what we're being challenged to do. Step by step, it's a process. Step by step, very real. People either love this channel or they don't love this channel, but the most common perceived criticism I get is for being real. There's an irony to that, because this is a channel about being authentic and being who you truly are, and modeling that and being honest about that and living it, which is why I'm sharing what I'm sharing today. Because if I did not share that today, I instantly feel like I would be lying, because it's the living, working template. And I feel sharing this part of it is important. So the most common criticism, if you like, I get is for being real and too authentic. But this is a channel about coming into the heart and being real and authentic. And that is everything, because if you're real and authentic, you're reaching these 0 point states of awareness and consciousness, and then you become creators. And then somebody watching this will say, well, perhaps you're being given the opportunity to create your way out of this. This is something that I'm, let's say, playing with, not working on, because it sounds too heavy, but playing with every day, creating my way out of it. And it has come to me, wrongly or rightly. Again, one of the ways of creating my way out of it is perhaps for the first time in 17 years of working in this arena, but the first time in almost 4 years on this channel, as if anybody would like to participate in helping me create my way out of particularly my living environment, which is having an impact on my well-being now, and also having an impact on me coming away from big aspects of what I'm doing now and getting, let's say, a so-called conventional job alongside. It may be alongside or it may be instead of. To facilitate making the practical changes I need to make. If anyone, again, feels like they want to contribute in any way, shape or form, $1, $2, whatever, have almost 7,000 subscribers. If even half of those decide to do that, that will give me the impetus to make the changes I need to make. At the end of the day, I think, whatever situations all of you or all of us are in, again, look at it as not tracking back to the past, but actually keeping in the moment, even if those conditions are uncomfortable. It is uncomfortable when you're coming away from old energy or you're dealing with old energy. And of course, the more you're aware of the new energy and the authentic, conscious kind of life force and creative force, the more you're aware of that, the more you're aware of anything that is in opposition, shall we say, to that. Anything that is not of that, you're aware of it, and it's very uncomfortable. It's very uncomfortable when you're aware of it in you, and it's very uncomfortable when it's around the circumstances of your life. I could say the more uncomfortable you feel, the more there is a gap between the unconscious and the conscious you, or the new energy and the old energy. And I'm not saying this is a bad thing. I think that's a good thing because you've noticed it. If you hadn't noticed it, you would be walking around like, well, there's two camps really. There is a camp that walks around that is fully conscious and are creating their reality, and they're kind of there. And there is many others that are walking around that are not at the moment creating their reality or aware of creating their reality, and so they are almost at war with themselves, and there's this push-pull between old energy and new energy. What I would say is positive to even have the feeling that you're wrestling, there's anything to wrestle with, because it shows that you're coming into that space that I call the space in between old energy and new energy, and that's one of your stepping stones until you get fully up into being fully conscious. With me, I have become very aware, and with a session I did with someone this week as well, that I've been acting as a bridge for some time between two states of consciousness, and I knew that was coming to an end. It's been coming for an end for about 14 months, and it is coming to an end for me, where I won't act as that bridge between two states of consciousness, but I'm going fully into being fully conscious 24/7 new energy. Why have I been maintaining that bridge? Some of it has been my old, holding on to the old, and as a templator, a natural templator, we transform old energy into new energy, and that's part of it. So if you're a templator, you're doing that as well. From my perspective, carrying that role out in the way I am now is not the best outcome for me. So again, to be the authentic me, I am kind of moving this over into the next rung of new energy. So that is what's going to be best for me as well. And again, it takes some kind of like courage to kind of say that. But all along, this channel has been about moving forward. Every time I've identified being caught up in a cycle of something, I've been really interested in why that's happening and understanding it. And not only for myself, but also to have that realization, but for you guys to have that realization. So, oh my goodness, this is a long video, so I have been waffling. Anyway, I hope that you're looking after yourselves. After this video, there's a couple more I've got in mind, but what I'm doing at the moment is working very much into when I feel like I always do the impetus to come on here, and when I don't, I feel this was kind of important to say today, really. And I'm hoping that it helps you guys, any of you that are in conditions that are, well, you're finding very challenging. I almost feel like in this light worker industry, or this light worker community, that people shy away from really being real, and they shy away from saying that this stuff is happening and it's part of life, and it kind of sucks sometimes. If you really look at the people that are known as spiritual teachers in this industry, they have had quite a colourful life, without exception. Some of them have been married 2, 3, 4 times. They've lost everything, and then they've come back again. They've not reinvented themselves, but basically they've transformed all the way through it. There are not many of them. There are some that will actually talk about it in a very realistic human fashion. And you know why? Because most people don't want to hear it. They want to know how, well, they want to experience getting at the top of the mountain being coming into the awareness of who they are, coming into the heart, living it, breathing it, being it, embodying it. But they do not want to know the climbing up of the mountain bit of it. Of course, not everybody has to climb the mountain in the same way. Some people's starting point are halfway up the mountain. Some is right down the bottom of the mountain. It's different for everyone. But we have to be, as part of being authentic and real, this kind of thing has to be said. There's a shakedown going on in everybody, every single person. Anyone that has any humanness in them, which is most of us on the planet, are having, this is part of it. We can't skip this part of it. The temptation is to skip it. I see it all over, and I even see some people talking about that. You can't. It's you go through stages of a process, and when you think you've got clear of something, you're yanked back into it if there was a little bit you missed, or there's still some unconscious program running in there. And if you are a templator, even more so, if you're a natural templator, if you're a natural transformer of consciousness, for the collective, even more so do you get yanked back into it and think it's yours, and it's not even yours. What that keeps happening until you stop putting your own emotional programming or emotional habitually your emotion linked to it. So it can only stick to you and grab hold, and you can only grab hold of it if there's still something in you that can be grabbed hold of, so to speak, in alignment with that which you are transforming on a global scale. So there's that going on as well. And again, only you can make the decision. Has that got to a point where that's detrimental for you? At the end of the day, the bottom line is, and I know it sucks, but the bottom line is you have to sit down and look at your lives and say, am I happy? Do I feel alive? Is my quality of life a good quality of life? Am I being true? Am I being authentic? Am I still being controlled by the society around me, the situation around me, the family around me? Am I able to freely be me, freely be? Am I truly me? Am I truly conscious? Wherever you're at now, again, I'm going to repeat, is your starting point. It is a shakedown, and I know it's scary. I know it's scary when you look out to the world, and I know it's even more scary when you look at your inner world, the micro and the macro. But this is the point we are at. And at this point, the temptation is to run for the hills in all of us. You know, that temptation is to run for the hills, and your opportunity is not to run anywhere, but to actually sit and face it. You do not have to do it on your own. Yes, it is an inner process, but you can get support from people. Don't feel you're on your own. You would be amazed at how this is happening up and down each and every country, in each and every household, to lesser or more degrees. You know, some places more than others, or some are seeing it more than others. But every culture, most cultures, not all cultures, most cultures I have worked with or work with client-wise. This is regardless of country or status or anything else. This is happening, and this is a shakedown. This is a big shakedown, not in order to hurt anyone or punish anyone, in order to, as a wake-up call of where you're at, where your life is going, where you're going, where the planet is going, because we're all affecting one another, and what happens in us affects the planet, what happens in the planet affects us. And what I would say to you is just, you know, look after yourselves. Look after yourselves, take care. For some of you, it's going to be baby steps. For some of you, it's a big shakedown and a big transformation. It's affecting all of us, even people that you perceive to be got everything, their crap together, you know, their shit together. Everybody's getting affected one way or another, and everybody at the end of the day has to walk their walk, me included. On that note, I will love you and leave you. I had another 2 videos in mind, very different to this one, but we'll see how this goes. Really, so much intensity and change at the moment that if I don't do them at the time, in 1 week's time, for example, I won't be bringing out the same videos as I would have brought out, because I'm in a very different space. As always, thank you for watching the channel. I do hope it helped. Thank you for the ways that you contribute in any way that you can, whether that's support in any way you can. And once again, I'll see you on camera again soon. Loads of love to you guys, and look after yourselves. Hang on in there in this shakedown, inner and outer. Loads of love. Bye.